Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of the Transformation Hour. You know, this is the show designed to help us connect so that individuals, businesses, and communities can develop, transform, and fly to new heights. All right, you know, our main topics are leadership, personal development, entrepreneurship, or anything to help you get your mind, body, and soul right. All right. And on today's particular topic, we're going to be talking about the importance of having a supportive spouse for your business and your career. My special guests are none other than Miss Naomi and Mr. Joel Mitchell. And let me talk to you guys a little bit about their background. I'm going to tell you, by the time we get done with this episode, it's going to feel like we've had a little church. Here's why. All right. So Joel Mitchell, he's an ordained and licensed minister who has worked in the field of social services for over 20 years, guys. He's also a deputy commissioner for the Chicago Department of Family and Supportive Services. He just oversees the day-to-day operations for some of the homeless and human services divisions within the city of Chicago. He's presently pursuing his Doctor of Ministry in Pastoral Care and Counseling at Chicago Theological Seminary. So that's Dr. Joel, all right? So now and I'm saying doctor because we're going to go ahead and speak that into existence right now.
Amen,
right?
amen.
And then we're also going to have Dr. Naomi Mitchell, who is a licensed minister. She has a heart for just wholeness, wellness, well-being. So you know we're going to have a whole lot of fun, just excitement as we go through this particular segment. But in addition, she's on the board of just a range of counseling expertise. Her experience is in bereavement, marriage, eating disorders, self-esteem issues, depression, anxiety, you name it. And like I said, she is also a current candidate for Doctor of Ministry from the Association of Chicago Theological Schools. And here's their I talked about all these phenomenal accomplishments that they have, right? But let me talk to you about the three most important accomplishments that Dr. Joel and Dr. Naomi have. Mm-hmm. That is Jasper, Jacobi, and Sidni. All right? Those are their three children. I promise you, that is their pride. That's their joy. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the Transformation Hour, Dr. Naomi and Dr. Joel Mitchell. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for your time today on the show. How are you guys?
Great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So for those of you guys who weren't privy to a few of the things that we talked about offline, these two are superstars. They are venturing into some new areas, some new experiences. They are allowing their gifts and their talents to allow them to really be a brighter light for those that they come in contact with, and new parts of their vision is starting to expand with the book launch and things of that nature. So we're going to get into the book as we get ready to go into today's episode. But what I want to do, it doesn't matter who takes it first. What I'll say, Dr. Joe, we're going to let Miss Naomi take it first. Talk to us, Miss Naomi, about your story and how you guys met and how that experience turned out for you.
Yeah, so thank you for having us. So we met, Joel and I actually met in church. I have been there all my life, had grown up at this church. And in fact, I was probably at the time he came to the church, maybe about 33 or so. And I was at the point where, growing up, I said, well, by the age of 29, I'm going to be married and I'm going to have kids and all of these things. And, and I was getting a little older. I was like 33 and that wasn't happening.
Right.
And, I had been to the point, where I had been looking around where I see a single guy come to the church and I'm like, oh, is that him? Because, I wanted someone that was in the church. And
is that my Boaz? You was looking for him?
Yeah, right. Is that him? Is that him, Lord? And I finally had come to a place, where I was becoming content in my singleness. I was like, okay, Lord, whatever you say, I'm good. If it doesn't happen, I had to get to that point because that was tough. But anyway, this guy comes walking into the church, and he came in, he was visiting with his mom, and I was like, oh, he's a nice guy, he looks nice, but I wasn't thinking of him as, as my Boaz. I was just like, oh, nice, humble looking guy. He came in and he joined the church and came in and was a great part of the church and was just a great person, great personality. And then we became really good friends. Ultimately, we became prayer partners. And we would pray for one another and run different things by one another. In fact, we were praying for one another a mate. And we would encourage, she looks like a nice girl. What do you think about her? Or, he's a nice looking guy, or he's a nice guy, a nice Christian guy. And we didn't know. And then one day, Joe, he's probably better at telling this part of the story because he likes to throw it in my face. But I remember him saying, Naomi, I know we've been friends for a while. We hang out and everything. And I just don't want to be hanging around you and not letting you know. But my feelings are starting to change. And he says, I looked at him and I said to him, I said, mine haven't. And he said, he just kind of picked his face up off the floor, because I've been hurt and I had this wall up. And I said, like I said, I was content in my singleness. And for him changing on me all of a sudden like that, I wasn't prepared for that, So maybe he can pick up from here, but.
All right, Brother Joe. Talk to me now. How, when she hit you with the body shot, how did that make you feel? What happened?
It was definitely a body shot. And so, as Naomi said, after I picked my face up off the floor, because she broke my face.
Right.
And but what I shared with Naomi was that I wanted to be honest with her, and I wanted to be like, look, Nay, I'm not trying to be like the TV shows, and I'm secretly pining for you. I want to let you know that if this is not gonna happen, then we're gonna have to, slow down and pump the brakes, and we can't hang out as much as we hang out. I was really beginning to, as they say, the Lord was showing me that, she was going to be my wife, and I didn't want to have any hidden agendas. And if, I know when the Lord shows us, the wife, she also has to agree with it,
Right.
And so if she wasn't going to be down with the program, then I was going to have to just kind of take a step back, because I didn't want to be, disingenuous and just kind of keep hanging out, hoping, praying one day her feelings was going to change. And so
Right.
it was a very hard, it was a very hard place for me to be in, but I felt like I needed to be honest with her and honest with myself. And, but thank God, as faith would have it, we continue to kind of pray and talk through that thing. And ultimately, we were able to start this. We never really dated, in the kind of traditional sense, but our friendship continued to evolve. But like I was saying, it began to evolve more romantically. And although, we wanted to honor God because we were older, and so we had both had histories and we had our past relationships, and so we were very open and honest. Because we prayed about that. She knew me and knew all of my stuff, so we knew that in this relationship, we wanted to do something different. And so we did start practicing. Well, she was already practicing abstinence. I started practicing abstinence for about 3 years, through this process before we were actually married. Now, it was hard. I ain't going to tell no stories to your audience. I am in no way Jesus Jr.
Right. I'm with you.
Hey, they're keeping this thing all the way real.
I can.
But we did want to honor God and honor each other, and so thankfully we came close. But thankfully we were able to hold out, and I think our friendship and our love for one another, and the fact that we just truly liked each other, worked for us then. And it has continued to work for us through these 15 years that we've been
Yeah.
married, because I would say it's our friendship that has really been the glue through all of the ups and downs, in addition to, we always talk about that threefold cord, but those have been really the two, I would say, having God in our life and in our marriage. We didn't invite him just to the wedding, we invited him to the marriage.
Awesome.
Which is a difference.
Well, and I tell you, one thing that I really noticed in just listening to both of your responses is there was a level of spiritual maturity that was required in order for you guys to really, transition from that friendship into a romantic relationship, and now what has grown and evolved into what you have today. Is it safe to say, Miss Naomi, that spiritual maturity is a requirement or is a must in order to have a healthy relationship?
I think so, most definitely. And I appreciate that because, when we talk about being unequally yoked, that brings some, definitely some struggle, that if you're not on the same level spiritually in relation to maturity, then that can bring some difficulty or introduce some difficulty and some greater challenges into the relationship.
Right, and it's perfect little segue into you talk about the challenges that we face when we don't have that spiritual maturity. I'm pretty sure things haven't been, all dandelions and roses in the meadows for you guys. So share, not any of the intimate details, but just, kind of give us a general idea of some of the challenges that you guys have faced in terms of building successful careers and building a successful family as you both matured and growed as a couple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's important to know. But Joel, when both of us got married, he was actually younger. He was 5 years, or he is 5 years younger than I am. And the other thing is that I had been in the church for quite some time, and then Joel came to the church a little bit later. And so, we talked about those things, and even I had some concern about that when we came together, because I was like, well, he may not be as mature spiritually because he's just getting into the church and into the word and those types of things. And so that was one of my prayers and one of my concerns as, we were in our friendship and wanting to move to a different level. And so I watched God mature him and grow him to a place, just blew my mind because he was just starting, but he had a hunger and thirst after God, where he, it was not, I had been in relationships before where the men wanted to do it for my sake. They wanted to have a relationship and they wanted to come to church because they were trying to be with me. But Joel, in retrospect, I see that he was really interested in having a relationship with God. And so because of his genuineness and authenticity with that, his relationship with God grew. And so I always wanted a man that loved God more than he loved me, because I knew that God would then teach him how to love me. And so the challenges that we faced growing up was that as we were going along, was that I had to wait, for him to grow in his relationship with the Lord as I watched. And so our friendship lasted for about 3 years before we even, before he proposed or any of that. And so that was a challenge, having to wait and having to see, just was he genuine? Was his relationship with God genuine? And was he doing this for God and not for me? So that was one challenge in the beginning. And then the other challenges, that we grew through was just allowing one another space to grow, because we're both, we're growing in our own right and in our own way, individually. And so we always talk about, is there space for grace and room to grow? Because even though we're a couple, we also are individuals and we have our separate lives. And so I'm watching him as he's stumbling and making mistakes and growing and running, and same with me. I'm growing, and is there space for that? Or are you judging me? Or are you encouraging me? And so those were some challenges. Does that make sense?
No,
You
yes,
know?
ma'am. That makes tons of sense. I mean, I think that it's important for those who are listening to understand that if you aren't giving each other that space and that grace to be able to grow and, like you said, to stumble and even take a step back and forgive them and even forgive
Yeah.
yourself and your involvement and your role as well in that growth and maturation process, I think it's very important that we allow that for our mates and for our partners. So,
Hmm.
so, Mr. Joe, what would you say was the greatest lesson, or has been up to this point, the greatest lesson that you've learned throughout your marriage that has helped you guys get to where you are today?
Mm, the greatest lesson. I think, again, the greatest lesson has been, you say they may get a little churchy, but,
Hey, that's what
but,
this is all about. This is about transformation on this show. So let's go. Let's have it.
Yes.
yeah. And but I think it's really putting God first. And I say that not just to sound like I say super spiritual, but in our relationship, what I've learned was, we have had challenges. And when I first met Naomi, of course, I always say I snuck in through the back door of the church. I wasn't there all my life.
Right,
You
I
know?
got you.
But I saw that she had something genuine, with God. And so as opposed to wanting Naomi, I told her, I'm like, I want that kind of relationship that you have. I didn't even want her at that time because, to be honest, I thought she was unattainable due to her level of maturity and her walk. So I just knew this was going to be a friendship. So I wasn't even
Right.
sweating it. Like, how can I get to where you are in my walk with God? And so, but as I developed my own personal relationship, then it allowed me to just be honest with Naomi, allowed me to be honest with myself. And then as our relationship continued to grow, one thing that I began to share with Naomi was that, I loved her so much, but I knew if I did her wrong, then I would be doing God wrong. And so I didn't want to do God wrong because I know that would be hell. I'm sorry, can I say that? But that would be that would be that would be hell to pay.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, no doubt.
so therefore, I wasn't trying to play with it. And again, the thing with us, we've had challenges. We when we got married, we had honeymoon babies, and I do say babies because we had a set of twins right off the bat, straight out of the gate. We were married in March, the boys came in June.
Right.
And then shortly thereafter, we had our daughter. And so now I go from being single all of these years to now having a spouse, now having 3 children, and I'm in the church. And so, of course, the message that men get is priest, provide a protector, priest, provide a protector. And I'm like, how am I going to do all of this? I don't have the ability or the capacity, so it was a struggle, trying to hold all of this together. And one of our biggest challenges early on was I wasn't being honest with Naomi about that. I wanted her to think, I had it all together. I was the man that she had been waiting on, the man that she had been praying for. And so I didn't want to come up short. And so as a result, I wasn't being honest. I didn't say, baby, this is stressing me out. Baby, I'm having a hard time at work. Baby, I don't know how we gonna make ends meet this month. And when things get tight, Naomi always talks about we should always turn towards each other and not away from each other.
Mm.
But I guess in terms of how I was feeling and emotionally, trying to keep a straight face and trying to continue to act like I had it all together, I was turning away from Naomi, and I was still praying, but I was praying by myself. I wasn't coming, we weren't sitting down together saying, hey, Lord, how can you help us get through this? And I think that's really key, even to this segment about having a supportive spouse, because I know we'll transition into that, but what I learned through trial and error is that Naomi was there and she had my back. And if I would allow Naomi to really be not to sound too biblical here, but to really be, a helpmate in the sense of the word of, that God has given her skills and abilities, to help both of us in this relationship. If I had have learned that very early on, we probably would not have gone through as many struggles as we did with me trying to front.
I got you. Hey, so you brought up something that I think is very critical specifically for any man that is going to listen to this broadcast. And you brought up your emotions. And I know oftentimes we as men, we're brought up to, don't cry. Boys aren't supposed to cry. You're supposed to be tough, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it so important for us as men to be able to tear down that wall of toughness and really allow ourselves to be vulnerable and be transparent with our mate in order for our mate to be supportive the way we need them to be supportive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the scriptures that I really kind of, kept with me was the fact, the scripture that states, God's strength is made perfect in my weakness. But if I'm never able to demonstrate or show myself as being weak, when can I, allow God to come in and be strong? If I'm trying to front and act like I got it together all the time, and so I think as men, we were brought up with that, just kind of, for us to think that we could carry the world on our shoulders. And so, but when I was able to allow God to come in, and that was the most liberating thing for me in the world, to know that I didn't have to have it all together, to know that I didn't have to always have the answer, to know that sometimes I got weak. And not only was it liberating for me in my relationship with God, but then when I became vulnerable with Naomi, we always share and talk about the story. Men always like to say, my wife, well, that's my rib. And when I really looked at that thing and I allowed Naomi to come in and actually be my rib and protect my heart, what I like to say is now I might have to go out there and be Superman for the world, but when I come home, Naomi allows me to be Clark Kent, and I don't have to front. I don't have to have it all together. I can cry sometimes, and she protects me. We get so caught up on being the priest, provider, and the protector, but Naomi actually protects me.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm out here fighting and facing the world, she's covering me in ways that allow me to be, all that, God has called and created me to be in that sense.
So, Miss Naomi, he brought up something about the woman being the rib, and so Miss Naomi, he brought up something about the woman being the rib, and I had never considered it or viewed it from this perspective until just now, where he said the rib is there to protect the heart of the man. That blows my mind, because again, I had never considered it, and that's exactly what the ribs do. And so I want to ask you, from the female, the woman's point of view and perspective, why is it so important for women to view themselves as that rib, as the protector of the man's heart, so that he can have that strength and be Superman and go out into the world and face the world's challenges?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I think it's a privilege. I count it a privilege that I am Joel's rib. I've been called to be his rib and called to protect his heart. Because one, with him being out in the world, so to speak, and there to take care of our family, and he's out there trying to make a life and make a living for us. If I'm not protecting his heart, then, ultimately it impacts the entire family. So it impacts myself as well as him. And so it's like a mirror almost. It's a dual role, because I'm there to protect his heart, but also, he's protecting me. He's giving us life by doing everything that he needs to do out there. And so when we always talk about, it's not a win-win. A win-lose. It has to be a win-win. And so if we remember that we're on the same team, that ultimately what we do for one another is for the whole. We don't count ourselves as, being half, but it's about what do I bring to this relationship to complement him. And so if he just allows me to see him, intimacy, and we talk about this all the time, you've probably heard it, is intimacy. So are you allowing me to see into you? That brings intimacy into the relationship and draws us closer together. So if he's allowing me to see into him to the point of his weakness, then certainly it's my role to protect that, because that's a gift that he's given me to see that much of himself. And most men, they put up walls and you don't see that part of them. And so they're playing this role, and then ultimately, it impacts the family because they're not really being authentically themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's important to protect them in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so now we're gonna transition into how, the practical steps of how to overcome a broken marriage. And of course, that book was birthed, I'm sure, out of some pain and out of some challenges. Miss Naomi, if you'll go first, kind of walk us through the pain, the challenges, and some of the practical steps that you had to take in order for you guys to heal and overcome a broken marriage.
Mm-hmm. And so, getting married and going into, we talk about how we had just this beautiful wedding. We had this great relationship going, this great friendship, this beautiful marriage. And we had, we got married in March. We had the babies the next June. I was older. I wanted to have babies quick because I was 38 when I got married. I was 39 when I got pregnant. I was well beyond childbearing years. God blessed us where we had double, in the beginning. I was like, yes, because I was able to get two and one. That was wonderful. But coming with the 2 and 1, it was a lot of work and a lot of unknown or uncharted territory that we had never charted before. And so having 2 babies at one time, a very new marriage where we were still getting to know one another, and then having the 2 babies join us was very challenging because we had to take care of 2 babies. Joel was in school full-time. He was working full-time. And then we had the twins. So of course we were up nights and him going to school and working. And I had a full-time job that we ended up, I ended up staying. I was at home, thank God, stayed home for a year. But trying to manage all of these things can become, is a challenge, and it becomes difficult because yes, they were blessings. God blessed us and in fact overtook us with blessings, but handling those blessings was new territory for us. How do we handle all of this, where people say, we pray that your blessings will overtake you. Well, they were overtaking,
Right.
And so we had to learn this new normal, this new way of being as a couple now became a family. And so we had to financially, physically, emotionally, all of these things deal with that. And then me being a new mom and having the developing the maternal instincts and everything that I needed. So I was learning as we were growing together and having the babies. And so that also put a strain on our relationship because I was more focused now on being the best mother I could be and being the best wife I could be took a back seat. And so I think that impacted our relationship and brought some difficulties because here Joe was out, as he was just saying, struggling, trying to be this provider, priest, and protector. And then he had these 2 babies to add to having to take care of me, but now the family. And so he was focused on the outside of the home and working and going to school and being all that he could be. And I'm focused on the inside, and the relationship took a back seat. And so that brought challenges into the relationship as well right away. And so we were kind of existing, we wasn't living. We were existing because we were both just trying to make this thing work and develop these systems. And I was over here doing my thing, trying to make it work inside the home. He was over here trying to make things work outside the home, and so of course we didn't realize that there were cracks forming in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about in the book, and that's why we called it Shattered, because anytime a shatter right before a shatter comes, there's always some warning signs. And so there were cracks forming, just like if a pebble hits your windshield and it first becomes a nick and you see the nick. And if you don't repair the nick, then the nick can become little splinters. And then before you know it, it spreads across the windshield. Well, that's what was happening to us. We were just living and trying to make it. And there were some nicks in our windshield. And then it started to spread. And then before we knew it, it became bigger and bigger. And so there were gaps in our communication. There were gaps in our intimacy because I was so busy with the babies. I was too tired to be intimate with my husband. Conversation was less and less because we were more talking about how to make the kids, get the kids on point, how to take care of them. When he came home from work, I was throwing him the babies. Here you go. I need to go and get some rest, And so again, these were all, normal things, but it was impacting the relationship.
Gotcha. So, Brother Joel, what are some of the things that you yourself, what did you have to do? Because I can only imagine, if I go back a few years, my kids are a little bit older, 17 and 16 now. But when you were going through that process, what type of stretching and extending did you have to go through in order for you to be able to still be the man that your family needed you to be, but to also grow as a man of God, and then bring all of those things together in order for your family to continue to move forward?
Well, Brother Jay, I wish I could sit here and say that I got it all right.
Okay.
But I didn't. I didn't. And that was the thing when I talked about initially, how when all of this was going on, as opposed to me turning to Naomi, this is when I was trying to front and act like I had it together. And, you can only imagine Naomi now, she has these two babies and she's trying to, again, be the loving mother, and she wants to feed them and support them. And, she's holding both of them in her hands. And I'm like, well, shoot, where do I fit in?
Right.
Where can a brother get in there somewhere?
Right.
But I felt like I was being selfish if I was to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I was kind of suffering in silence, because I thought I was being selfish if I said, hey, can I get in there? We got a third baby, we got 3 babies under 3. And I'm like, how can I come in and talk about, these are my needs when I done did this to her,
Right. So what did you like? Did you guys seek counseling, or was it just one-on-one counseling, or was it couples counseling? What did you guys actually do to help you understand and gain the clarity on where those nicks and cracks were, and how you can actually, create and build or replace the broken windshield that you guys referred to?
Yeah, and this is where I think both of our vocations, being in pastoral care and counseling, and Naomi's actually done some extended study at the Center for Religion and Psychotherapy, that although, there's a huge stigma as it relates to, therapy and receiving counseling, I think we were a little more open to it than others. And so we were open to, seeking out counseling for our relationship. And then we really kind of determined, made it up in our minds also, that we couldn't continue to exist the way that we were. And that's where we talk about that threefold cord, because, and I'm sorry, I talk a lot, but, in our community, we like to sing Teddy Pendergrass, I want a 50-50 love. But we learned that in our relationships, it's not a 50-50 love. Because sometimes Naomi was giving 100 and I was on 0, or sometimes I would have to put in 80 and then Naomi would give 20, but we realized that together we were still giving it all that we had. And we knew that, for us, divorce was not an option. Mm-hmm. We knew where we wanted to We knew that God had called us together for a purpose greater than ourselves. We knew how we wanted our children to come up in a loving and caring environment. And so I think sometimes we just had to kind of get over ourselves and look to the greater good. And I always mess up the name of the title of this book, but what if marriage was to make you holy as opposed to making you happy? And so we had to really try to come to terms with that and seek out the assistance. So Naomi started like way before I did, because although I'm in pastoral care and counseling, although I've been in social work for 20 years, I still had some issues. Like, I don't need nobody telling me how to run my life, run my relationship. And so that's actually when Lamar started seeking out Lamar and Ronnie with Black and Married with Kids. Because, you know, even before Traffic, Sales, and Profit, they had, excuse me, Peter, I need this. But even long before we got into the Traffic, Sales, and Profit, you know, they had Black and Married with Kids. And so we were actually starting to utilize some of their tools and some of their resources that Naomi was, you know, seeking out and bringing. And so she's like, Joel, I need you to watch this video. I'm like, I ain't trying to watch no video. But, you know, and that's how we actually got into utilizing not only the counseling, but utilizing the tools and the resources that were being made available to couples. And that really blessed our relationship. And even more when I saw more Black men, you know, being utilized in those videos. I could connect with them. I could gravitate to them. It was real men. And I think, you know, not to be a plug here, but guys need to see guys, you know, not the preacher, pastor, not the counselor.
Right.
They need to see a guy, you know, and I thank God for allowing me to be what I believe is a man's man. You know, I love the brothers, and men need to see some real guys, you know, and then I was able to kind of open up, be vulnerable again, and receive that type of help.
Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have my affection and love for the different roles that our ministers and pastors and everything play in our lives. But you're right. Sometimes we just have to step outside and to face reality and see someone who can really connect with us and really bond and say, okay, look, I get scripture. I totally understand. But I just need you to give it to me real right about now so I can really make this thing make sense and make it all work. So, Miss Naomi, and as Brother Joel talked about how he had to actually make a mindset shift in terms of being open to the idea of somebody telling him, you know, hey, this is what you should do to help your life to become better, your marriage become better. What are some of the changes that you witnessed as he went through that mindset shift and that growth process?
I think, you know, one of the things I remember when I saw, you know, it was finally that we had gotten into this rhythm, you know, with the kids. It wasn't until we talk about finding balance, but you know, it's difficult to find balance because everything doesn't need the same attention. Everything doesn't need the same energy. Everything doesn't need the same time at the same time. And so we stopped and learned that we don't need to find balance. We need to find harmony, you know, and so harmony means that one thing might need this amount and another thing might need this much time, and that might need, you know, this much energy or this much space. And so learning to give what we can during the season that is needed. So when we started getting into a rhythm with the kids and getting into harmony with one another, it was then when I found that, you know, when I saw that he was being drawn away, you know, so that's when I was able to see that. And so I realized that, oh, I'm missing it here, you know. And so when I started to pay more attention to my husband and started asking him, you know, babe, what can I do? What do we need to do? How can we get, because there's a space between us that I'm not liking, you know? And so when I start to pay attention, that's when I saw him to begin to draw closer to me. And so that's when I saw the change. And so then I also started to look for other resources because I'm like, we need help. But because we are, ministers and we're leaders in the church and all those things, we didn't feel comfortable at first going into that space because you can't tell all of your stuff to everyone. So we wanted to go to a space where we could be comfortable talking about our needs, and that it would be a sacred space, and it would be a space where we could literally be transparent. And so we were able to seek out, in prayer and find a counseling. We went to counseling, and Joel agreed, and talk with someone that would be able to hold us where we were. And not only hold us, but hold us in confidence. And so that's when we both were able to talk about where we had been, what we were dealing with, what were our emotions, what our needs were, openly and honestly, without feeling, judged. No, it was a non-judgmental zone. So that's when I start to see the change in him, and I also start to see the change in us, and I also started seeing us drawing back closer together.
Awesome. We got a couple more questions. We're going to get ready to get you guys up out of here. My next question is more so outside of everything that we've kind of talked about, but it's something that I'd like to ask each one of my guests because I like to get the different views and perspectives on this particular question is, and that is, and I'll let Miss Naomi go first. What does it mean to be extraordinary?
Extraordinary. Mm-hmm. I'm learning what it means to be extraordinary is different for different people, and that's okay. What we learned is that we were trying to fit into this mold that we thought, that God had set out for us. But when we, suffered different losses and the doors were closed in our face, and we received a lot of no's, and we were broken individually and as a couple as we were trying to figure out our space in the world and our purpose and what God had planned for us, what we thought it was, and what we saw being out there, all of the examples, wasn't at all what God was leading us to. And so I think to be extraordinary, you have to be willing to break the mold and be willing to blaze some trails and be willing to be open to doing something different. We talk about, there's a scripture that says when Jesus was, it says in the same manner or the same night he broke bread when he was giving communion, his last day here on earth, before he was getting ready to be crucified. The Bible says that he took the bread and he blessed it, and then he broke it, and then he gave it. And so God gave me a revelation on that. That's what he did for our relationship. We had this wonderful marriage, and he blessed us. We were blessed beyond measure. And then all of a sudden we became broken, and then our brokenness became so beautiful in the hands of God. And then we're now being able to be used. And so it's so amazing how, first I'm like, I don't know why we had to go through this, but we had to go through this so that God could get us to a place where God wanted to use us. And it didn't look like what anyone else was doing. It didn't look like what we thought we should be doing. We had to let go of everything that we thought it should be. We had to let go of our vision and just be open to something new and something different. And so it's like, well, God had to break us I'll say God used our broken places so that God could use us. And then it was important because we were broken in the hands of God. But it was okay because we were in God's hands. And so God was able to make us and shape us into now being pliable and flexible to what God wanted us to be.
All right, Brother Joe, what you got? And it's okay if you just want to say, man, what she said, okay? See, that's why I let her go first.
Because how are you going to come behind that, man?
Exactly.
But the one thing that I would echo from what Naomi shared was that we're learning how to be our authentic selves. And when you're authentic, can't nobody else be you. And so why are we spending all this time trying to be somebody that we're not? And our authentic selves mean, you know, I'm loud. I can't help it. That's just who I am. You know, and I'm not prim and proper. I'm not, you know, cut neat around the edges. But you know what? That's okay. And that's what we talk about in the book. We talk about, you know, being reconciled to God. And once we get in alignment with God, you know, get our vertical relationship, you know, straight up. And then not only that, we're reconciled to ourselves. So we learn how to affirm ourselves. We learn through this brokenness. Sometimes people will not affirm you. You know, people, and like Naomi said, we got a lot of no's. You know, here we are. You know, we're the couple. We both love God, and we got our education, and we, you know, but we got a lot of doors slammed in our face too. You know, and then so that meant we had to learn how to affirm ourselves. So if nobody else loves us, guess what? God loves us, and I love, and we love each other. And those are our premises. You know, so we reconcile to God, we reconcile to our individual selves, learning how to appreciate who we are as individuals. And then God was able to reconcile our relationship. And so I think those are definitely some ingredients, you know, for God to put some extra on our ordinary.
Yeah.
Because
Awesome. So, all right, guys. So before we get you up out of here, there's an opportunity for you guys to just share where people can go and learn more about you guys, learn more about your book, how they can purchase your book, how they can connect with you on social media. And even if you want to share a little bit about the Family and Marriage Institute of Chicago, the floor is yours. If you want to take it, Miss Naomi, it is all yours.
Yeah, so we are, you know, the marriage investors, and we invest in couples, and we teach couples how to get a greater return on their I do. And so a lot of couples are struggling, and it's why did I say I do? Why did I get married? And, you know, all of these things. And so God has gifted us to journey with couples and individuals to kind of help them figure that out. You know, we believe in love, and we believe in marriage. And so we want to cultivate stronger marriages to create stronger families. And we know that stronger families make stronger communities. And so we want to not only invest in that, but we want to teach couples how to invest in themselves. So that's one of the things that we do as the marriage investors. And we can be found on social media and on our website at themarriageinvestors.com. You can get in touch with us. We also have a marriage investment system that we teach couples how to invest, and we have different levels of investment that you can get involved in, and we will coach you and consult you to get to a level in your relationship where you can be extraordinary, where you can be transformed. We believe it because this is how our marriage was transformed, and so we definitely want to help transform others.
Awesome.
And we definitely want to let people know where they can pick up the book, Shattered, How to Overcome a Broken Marriage. So you can pick up the book also at our website, www.themarriageinvestors.com. The book is also now available on Amazon. So you can go to Amazon and pick up a copy as well. And we just love it. We love what we do. We love working and investing in couples, and we love seeing the fruit of that investment, that return on that investment. And Brother Jay, I believe that really even aligns with your purpose and mission for the show. We want to see people whole. You know, we think that good is the enemy of great, and we want to see people thrive and not just survive. You know, in all of the various areas and aspects of their lives. And so thank you so much for allowing us to come and share with you and have this discussion. It's been a blast. I've had a great time. And so thank you so much. We really, really enjoyed it and appreciate you for allowing us to come in and spend some time with you.
No, I'm grateful for you guys being able to allow yourselves to be utilized, to be able to share, to allow others to be able to take from your experiences so that they can grow in there, both individually and as couples. So I'm super grateful for you guys having the courage to step out there on faith, to put yourselves out there, to write this book so it can be a tool for others. I mean, that's what this show is all about. I just want to create a tool so that others can get the information that they need to be able to grow both personally, professionally, in their marriages and in their businesses. So I'm grateful for you guys. And I'm grateful for the listeners for investing their time to sit down and gather the information that they need to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. I'm truly grateful and hope that this conversation helped you guys. And if you are searching for more in-depth information, go over to themarriageinvestors.com, sign up for their newsletter, purchase the book, do everything that you can to get this tool, to get this information in the palm of your hand so that you can transform your marriage and also transform you as an individual. All right. And if you're looking for more in-depth information for training and on leadership and personal development and even business development, head over to www.mrjjackson.com so that you can get all the tools and resources that you need to help you transform in your life and your business. Until next time, guys, I appreciate everybody. Go be great. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.